You're listening to Puma Podcast.
As we enter the new year, a time when many Filipinos reflect on the past year or prepare for the next chapter in their lives, migration remains top of mind. And this year, one story stands out. Japan, the world's fourth largest economy, is facing a growing paradox. On one hand, Japan, with its aging population and declining labor force, urgently needs foreign workers to sustain its economy. On the other hand, anti-immigrant sentiment has been rising, influencing policies and political rhetoric, potentially putting those very migrants at risk. A recent Foreign Affairs piece calls it Japan's stalled immigration experiment. Since 2025, anti-foreigner sentiment has gained ground in Japanese politics, even as the government plans to admit up to 820,000 foreign workers under its specified skilled worker system by the end of the decade. This push and pull is happening while thousands of Filipinos continue to build lives and careers in Japan. According to the Immigration Services Agency today, some 340,000 Filipinos call Japan home. This makes us the fourth largest foreign community in that country, following the Chinese, Vietnamese, and South Koreans. To help us understand what's going on and what it means for Filipino migrants, we're joined by someone who has been studying this closely. Today, we have Professor Gracia Liu-Farrer, one of the co-authors of the Foreign Affairs article titled Japan's Stalled Immigration Experiment: The Uncertain Future of a Promising Approach. She is a professor of sociology at the Graduate School of Asia-Pacific Studies and director of the Institute of Asian Migrations at Waseda University in Japan. I am Lyn Olavario, and you're listening to Teka Teka, powered by Puma Podcast. Professor Gracia, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Lyn, thank you for having me.
All right. Let's start with the main paradox your article describes. Why is anti-immigrant sentiment rising in Japan at the moment when the country needs foreign workers more than ever? Professor, what changed in recent years?
I think this actually emerged quite suddenly, and I was also surprised by this anti-immigration sentiment. It was almost like unexpected. However, I think especially after the COVID, there was a sudden rise of tourism and a sudden increase of foreigners, foreign guests and foreign workers become more visible in Japan. I think this kind of suddenness and this in a sense, maybe for some people, unfamiliar kind of landscape, make them reflect on, what's really going on. And some of the people were not very comfortable, maybe, with such a visible presence of people, and especially with the yen, getting is it yen value declining, and also the Japanese economy stagnating, and the Japanese people feeling like poorer and poorer actually recently. I think that sort of discontent with their life and with the economic conditions, juxtaposing with also, in a sense, inflow of foreigners spending money, and I think that probably partially explained this anti-immigration discourse. On the other hand, I think obviously the politicians, the especially some of the right-wing parties, try to kind of stir up this sort of sentiment by providing kind of misinformation about some of the programs, like scholarship programs, and also try to kind of channel people's discontents to aim at immigrants or immigration. So I think that a lot of things play into this sudden emergence of anti-immigration sentiment and discourses.
Right. Speaking of the political forces, you mentioned in the article that anti foreigner sentiment really took hold since the summer of 2025. Can you walk us through the political forces driving this backlash? Is this coming from specific parties, public opinion, or certain incidents that shifted attitudes?
This particular political party that's called public attention is called Sanseito, which in Japanese means participation in the politics kind of, party. So this party was actually very recent. It established itself on YouTube, so through social media in around 2020, and it was a building. It's a building. It's based by discussing some of the foreign tourist problem and perceiving foreigners as a threat and all that sort of issues. So this kind of direct aiming at recent immigrants or foreign residents, like foreign workers, is actually quite recent, because formerly the right-wing parties in Japan usually aimed at, say, the older migrants, the zainichi, and particularly about the local voting rights, etc. But this recent movement against immigrants actually came quite recently. So yeah, it is the Sanseito that, because of its sudden rise and its ability to take some of the upper house seats in the July election, that surprised the public. I think as a migration researcher myself, I was also surprised.
Mm-hmm. All right. And a lot of this conversation is rooted in Japan's demographic realities. Like, you have low fertility, an aging population, labor shortages. From your research, how urgent is Japan's demographic and labor situation right now? And would you say that foreign workers are truly essential to keep the economy running?
Well, foreign workers are truly essential. So Japan's demographic crisis is very, very is very serious. I oftentimes tell people, right now, almost 30% of the population is older than 65. And that's incomparable by any other country. I mean, it's a super aging society. And Japan's population actually has been declining very fast. And it's not just a proportional decline. It's basically, it will be more and more older people. So the younger people are going to support those older people. There isn't enough labor force. And the other thing is, like, I always ask people, is I guess the average age of Japanese farmers, and nobody could guess, is 69.2 by the last year's calculation. So we're talking about the people who are farming to produce food, and their average age is like almost 70. I mean, their grandmas are doing that, and without the support of foreign workers, I mean, it's impossible. So one of the prefectures around Tokyo, which provides a lot of food for Tokyo, which is called Ibaraki-ken, Ibaraki Factor. According to some statistics, according to their own kind of a local calculation, almost half of the agricultural products were produced by foreign workers. So we are really talking about the indispensability of the foreign workers in Japan's economy. That's why, I was like thinking, what's going on? Why is there such a anti-immigration sentiment when Japan desperately needs foreign workers?
That's quite concerning, because if the average, like you say, for example, the average age of a farmer is 70, imagine a 70-year-old still doing heavy manual labor and tilling.
I know.
How long can their bodies take it, right?
So, yeah, and also with aging, you also need a lot of care, right? And who is going to provide the care? And right now, the care workers are also increasingly supplied by foreign workers.
All right, let's move on to the SSW program. What's working and what's not. Japan has announced plans to bring in up to 820,000 foreign workers under the Specified Skilled Worker or SSW system. Please tell us how is this system performing so far?
I think it has been actually running pretty okay. At the very beginning, the number was slow to pick up because of the COVID. But then quickly, the number rose. And the main reason is because SSW essentially serves as the outlet or, the next stage for technical intern and trainee program. So Japan has been running this technical intern trainee programs for over 30 years. And it's this TITP we call is one of the major supplier or major component of foreign workers in Japan. Most of the workers can only stay for 3 years and up to 5 years in some industries. So it is not, previously it was not possible to renew and could stay, but now SSW served as a possibility, served the outlet for those workers. So the majority of SSW workers came from TITP workers. And according to some of the agencies that I interviewed, there's 60% of TITP workers who will stay becoming SSW. And plus some of the, new entrants. I think it has been going pretty well right now. I think in several hundreds of thousands of SSW workers are working in Japan. And so Japan is also expanding these programs around the, Asian countries. And also some of the registered support organizations are actively recruiting workers from like Indonesia, Vietnam, or even farther away. Some people are thinking of some South Asian countries, and other like Myanmar or Cambodia. So I think as long as the economic disparity still exists, and the active recruiting process is unfolding, and I think the supply of workers for the recent, for the next, and in the near future will not be a problem. But the Japanese yen and has decreased in value, and the pay is not as desirable for some of the workers, right? Especially for, I think, the countries that are more developed, such as the Philippines. So I think there will be a change of, nationality compositions in the future in terms of the source regions of SSW workers. But I think, probably within this decade, we still will see a substantial supply. The Japanese government is not changing the policy yet, right? At least not now. They realize that foreign workers are needed.
Right. You mentioned that the rate that migrants are coming in at Japan was slow, but gradually picked up. Are migrants coming in at the rate that Japan hoped for, and what are the biggest challenges that these migrants face when they get there?
I think the biggest challenge might be, how to fit into the kind of the work environment, the Japanese society, and also I think the language issue, the cultural issues are there. And according to some of the agencies, the first several months, and sometimes even the employers find the workers cannot really fully function as workers, right? So I think they have to overcome that. And the other aspect is depending on the countries, depending on the channels they come in. Some of the workers are, shouldering some of the debts that incurred in the process of, crossing the borders, there's intermediaries and brokerage. So I think the financial burden is also real. So it really depends whether they can, gradually fulfill their employment and also getting the contract and pay off their debts. And also, even though SSW says you could change jobs, right? Change employers, which is improvement over TITP, but I just think the getting employers to sponsor your visa and all that sort of transition, how to navigate that, and where you can get support is still quite complicated for some people. So it takes some time for them to navigate all those bureaucratic as well as the kind of a work context.
All right, let's move on to why this topic is important for Filipinos to know and to be discussed. The Philippines is consistently one of the top sources of migrant workers in Japan, from caregivers to engineers to technical trainees. What have you seen in terms of the Filipino experience? Are Filipinos more prepared for Japan's labor market compared to other groups, would you say, or do they face similar barriers?
I think the Filipinos obviously have had an advantage because the Philippine government has a more regulated labor sending process. And I think the Filipinos right now, probably the majority of them entered the care sector or domestic household support sector in Japan is all institutionalized and not in a household, not in a private household, but is always dispatched by the institutions. But I think for care work, I think the language barriers are still there, and the cultural barriers, and the requirement is even higher. So I think. And also, there is this concern of de-skilling, right? What Japan needs is just sometimes just care work, which is the support roles and very physical roles. But some of the Filipino workers probably are trained to handle more health care kind of tasks. So I think this is something that also factor into the considerations of the workers, whether you can really gain the skills and will have the opportunities to have a career by doing the sort of SSW workers in care sector. So it's a lot of consideration because currently the use of the workers are still at quite a manual and the basic level. And in order to advance to care, there is a care visa, visa for care workers, that which makes it skilled workers. And I think a lot of workers have to have to pass a lot of tests and improve their skills. And then how you can gain enough cultural and professional skills and to pass those tests, I think it will be a question as well as a challenge.
All right. You've already touched up on this earlier, integration. When we talk about migration, the conversation, of course, often goes beyond recruitment. It extends to integration and long-term settlement. How is Japan doing on that front? Do you think the country is ready for a more multicultural society?
Well, this current anti-immigration sentiment certainly discouraged me from thinking that way. I used to think, wow, Japan has been taking this approach that let the reality let the reality sink in, right? So it's a more pragmatic approach. And with the increase of migrants, Japan will embrace a more multicultural kind of society. But it seems like the backlash is already emerging, and I think that globally this anti-immigration sentiment is circulating, and the Trumpian discourses have a lot of followers as well in Japan, in Asia. So yeah, I think, but because Japanese industries need foreign workers, I think there will be more people. And the society will change, but I cannot predict how this tension is going to be resolved. And right now, I think around the world there are a lot of like for people like us have are in this crisis mode, right? How can we play a role in mediating this sort of tense situation. But I personally am a pragmatist, and I feel that politics aside, the Japanese public will get more used to the presence of foreigners around, and I think they will be part of Japanese society. But the integration is still right now. It's not the official policy. They only have kind of localized programs to incorporate migrants. Because if you don't have immigration, then you don't have integration policy, right, at national level. Japan right now still denies immigration.
The article warns that political leaders, particularly under pressure from the right wing, might slow down or even reverse progress on immigration reforms. How real is that risk, and is this something migrants should be worried about in the next few years?
I think certainly it is regressing a little bit, right? I think they're tightening some of the regulations. They try to kind of limit the irregular migration, for example, and then they try to kind of make, for example, immigrants crime or the public security issue as a topic. So migrants, that as long as I'm concerned, in Japan at least are worried that Japan's policies are going to change. I think I think for those who might be in a kind of a more precarious situation, I think it is a real concern, right? Whether the government is going to have a new kind of campaigns or have some retrenchment on the intake of some sort of workers. But in general, I think there won't be much of, in a sense, major changes in terms of the current already implemented labor migration policies.
All right. For Filipinos or those working in Japan or considering working in Japan, what should they know? Because we have listeners or viewers who may be planning to apply under the SSW program or considering work in Japan in general. What would you want them to understand? And would there be any red flags or opportunities or realities they should prepare for?
I think what they need to be aware is that what actually the Japanese society, and of judging from my interviews with the registered support organizations and also some of the employers, what they expect the most is somebody who could do what the Japanese workers do. So it's a very much a very kind of inwardly oriented kind of a perspective. So they have a lot of expectations for workers to be like, Japanese, or to speak better Japanese. And that for them, that's almost like the most important criterion. And the registered support organizations are willing to support, the foreign workers, and the demand for labor is still very large. So the numbers are not going to change. So I think overall the economic opportunities are there, but for the Filipino workers, they do need to, think this program actually is a pure kind of a contract labor program, and although it has the opportunity to gain skilled visa and to gain a residency in the future, it really requires that they improve their skills, improve their cultural capacity, cultural ability, cultural skills, actually. So it is a slow path, but it is a potential path for long-term residence. It's just it's quite slow. It's constantly you have to prove that you are there. And overall, I haven't seen a kind of overt public backlash against migrants. Even though there's anti-immigration sentiment, on the surface, as still very civilized.
All right. And I can imagine it must take time, especially, for example, learning a language and assimilating into a new culture. I
Right.
imagine it would also take time for the migrants or the workers. Uh,
Right.
Looking ahead, Japan in 2030, if these trends continue, the labor needs, the political tensions, the social challenges, what do you think Japan's migrant landscape will look like by 2030? Is there a scenario where Japan successfully becomes a more immigrant friendly country?
I mean, it's I cannot be a prophet in this sense, and I think I tend to be a bit optimistic because I think Japan so far as a governance is a quite pragmatic and almost the immigration is managed and it still wants to manage it, and the kind of the labor migration path is managed skill development path. um, Obviously I think Japan's economy is really stagnating, and the yen value etc makes Japan less attractive, but I think yeah, by 2030, there definitely will be a much larger foreign population, a much significant, proportion of foreign workers in Japanese labor force. And but I think this tension probably will um, be a bit more, visible. Like Japanese, some of Japanese people, and this is not just immigration, also international relations. Right now, it's a bit kind of delicate. So I think a lot of things will play a role in, in how Japan will be like by 2030s. But in terms of foreign population, definitely it will be a much more significant presence.
And we should watch how this will unfold. Yeah. Before we wrap up, Professor Gracia, is there any message or anything that you want to say to our viewers?
I think Japan has a pretty good labor market for people right now. I mean, it's seriously in need of labor, and employment rate is really high. So obviously, I think all workers are welcome. But for those of you who are thinking of staying in Japan, maybe try to kind of be a bit more prepared culturally to before coming to Japan, and also just think of this instead of just the economic opportunities, also as opportunity as a cultural opportunity as well. And so I think Japan's attraction right now probably is not just economic, because economically it's declining, but it's also a kind of a cultural attraction. And it's still a pretty good society a very safe society to live in.
Right, and Japan has been a very popular destination, at least a tourist destination for Filipinos to this day. Professor Gracia, thank you so much for your insights. This is such an important conversation, especially for Filipinos who have made Japan their second home, and for those preparing to make that journey. For those who wish to read the Foreign Affairs article by Professor Gracia and her colleagues, we'll give you the link in the episode description. And as we end the year and look toward what 2026 may bring, migration remains a story of both opportunity and uncertainty. Japan's next steps will shape not only its economy, but the lives of hundreds of thousands of foreign workers who help keep it going. That's it for this episode of Teka Teka. I'm Lyn Olavario. This episode is engineered by Jem Bunao. Jaemark Tordecilla is our editor at large. If you like how we do conversations, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more updates, we're also on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you for listening, and until next time.